Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast where we discuss content creation, video of all sorts, shapes and sizes, but most importantly, empowering you, the audience to make your own video, and you don't have to be a film grad. You don't have to be a lifelong filmmaker like myself to make video. You can be anyone. You can be my grandmother. You can be my mom, my dad. Or anyone in my age bracket or a kid at school these days. Anyone can make videos. So that's what the podcast is all about, is empowering everyday people to make video content. I'm really excited today to have Mike Grantis on the program. Mike's the Senior Director of Business Development at BarterPay Toronto. I've worked with Mike on a couple of projects already. He's a great guy, and he's got some really awesome insight onto his perspective of video creation. And we were just talking offline, and he was already saying some wonderful gems. So I had to hop on here and start recording so we could get all this good stuff. So Mike, welcome to the program. Thanks for joining me today.
Hey man, appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh man, my pleasure. I'm really excited. There's a couple of things that I know we're going to cover. I'm really excited to pick your brain on, but let's start at the beginning. When was the first time you decided, whether it was for BarterPay, whether it was maybe for a different company that you're working for previously, or just for yourself, when was the first time you were like, you know what, I'm going to sit down, press record, whether it's on my laptop or my phone, and just make a video? When was that first inception moment for you?
Man, it's a great question. To be honest, I started making videos way back, like in high school, before there was, any monetary value to it or anything. And it was just something that I love to do. It's, putting your own expression out to the world, splicing it together in ways that you think are creative and that fit best. And, that always, I've always been kind of a creative thinker, and that always appealed to me. So I'm trying to think of the first video I made. Like I used to do videos very often for final projects for classes because I hated to write essays. And so I thought, I would get the creativity points for doing a video and also get some star power from it as well. So I would say back in the high school days, probably the high school days is where it started.
That's hilarious. It reminds me of it's the exact same for me. I hated writing essays, and I didn't mind presenting in front of the class because I was into theater and acting a lot at the time. But video was still the best because I could add in music, I could add in all these special effects and fun stuff like that. And I was a big Lord of the Rings had come out around that time for me. I was a huge nerd on that side of things too. So I just wanted to make really exciting videos. I remember usually getting 10 out of 10 on entertainment, creativity, zero on content. Because for me, I would go off into entertainment and make it like a comedy, and it would have like almost nothing to do with the assignment, but everyone 100%. Was laughing, so it didn't matter.
We're such kindred spirits in that. And I think, the funny thing is back then you're holding the video camera that's like this size over your head, and you got to pack it in this big bag to bring it to school. And you're just doing funny like combat scenes and things like that. And it has nothing to do with what with what the assignment was, but we always had fun doing it.
Oh, I love it. I was a big Jackie Chan fan as well. And action movies were action and comedy were my two favorite genres to make. It's a blast. Like, so there's that,
Absolutely.
There's always that side to video. And I think for some people, they're going to have that childlike, fun attitude. And that's a great attitude. If you've got that attitude and you do have fun, telling stories, speaking in front of people, great. Like, keep that energy going when you're making your content. But, for those folks out there who I know just it's like, pulling teeth for them to make video content. Let's maybe get into like when you started making these great videos that you're doing for BarterPay. Let's use that as an example. What was maybe the first thing that popped into your head? Like, I really should start making these videos. And then how did you first start to tackle the process?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, I've for a long time believed that content is the way to get ahead, right? And so regardless of what that content is, maybe you're a writer and you like to write, maybe you're a singer and you like to sing. But I think, in today's age, video is the alpha. Video is what you need to get kind of, you need to wrap your brand around, I think. And so my kind of biggest impetus for those videos was just being, having the understanding that if you want to get recognized, if you want to get seen, you have to put out video content. And I think I'm still in the very early stages of that, so I don't want to, overproduce myself. But what I would say is, you know, it's getting off zero. There's always this restriction, or there's always this belief that you want something to be perfect before it gets out. But it's quantity over. It's got to be quality, but you got to put out the quantity first, because you can sit and revise for years on end before anything gets out into the market. But you have to test the market, and you have to continue to reiterate based on what the market is telling you. So it's just getting off zero, put something out, get your feedback on it. Shitty reviews, who cares? It lives forever if you want it to, but you can take it down in a minute if you don't. So it's just getting off zero, I think, is the biggest advice that I would give in that respect.
Yeah, I completely agree, and it's really becoming an immediate theme I've had in every episode is just do it, just get it going, and that's what I've been telling my clients forever is your first ones are always going to suck the most, like I went through that, I've started a couple of podcasts previously in my time, and TV shows, all these things. I've done so many different types of projects. It's always hard just to get the first one going, especially when you're producing it yourself. But let's you're a great example of somebody out there who's making content, because like you said, you're not overproducing things, you're not going crazy on this stuff, but it's effective. I've seen the content. I still retain some of the great information that you've had exposed in this content, so clearly there's a value. It's good work. What would you let's get in maybe to a little bit of the technical right now. What's your setup like? We're talking camera, mic, what have you put together that works nicely for you to make it easy and simple to produce?
Yeah, well, first of all, I appreciate that with the content respect, but from the setup respect, there's really two pieces, or I guess three pieces that in my opinion, I've been using that make kind of a good video. The one is I have a Logitech video camera, or a webcam. It's called a Logitech 1080p. I'm sure you can find it on Amazon for about $100. This microphone here is a Blue Yeti microphone, and it comes with like a boom stand that can swing like that. $200 maybe, so you're at $300. And then I have just a little circle light behind my face that puts a little bit of lighting. $20. So under $500 you can get a really professional looking setup, and to be honest, it's kind of slapped together, and it's worked for me so far. The other piece of advice I would say is, and I just picked this up a few weeks back, but if you have a cam or a light that you can put behind you that would shine on the back of your head, it gives like a good depth perception, and it just adds like an extra piece of that professional flair. But the great thing is with technology, the way that it is these days, it's exponentially growing, and it's so easy to look professional. You don't need $1 million budget in a film studio. You can do it in your bedroom, case in point, and look a little bit more professional than the average. So yeah, that's what I'm working with.
That's fantastic. So what Mike's actually talking about there is in the film world, we call that backlighting. And it's a great technique. I don't get into it too much because we could call that starting to get into the advanced school for content creators. The most important thing that Mike hit on with lighting is get your face. I mean, that's the moneymaker. That's the thing that people are connecting with. People like genuine content where they see a human being talking to them, usually not in the most perfect way either. It's nice you don't want to be too overly scripted. Maybe we can get into that in a second. But what Mike said was great, because it's like, what? A little, like, it can be one of those nicer lights, like, a $20 light, like those ring lights, sure. Or what, if you're really strapped and you just need something quick, I can see in Mike's background, he's got a lamp on his desk there. Grab that, unplug it, throw it to the side of the computer, boom, there you go. There's your light, It doesn't need to be that complicated. It's such a simple thing. You can literally get it going with everything you've got in your house right here, right now. But, I think we did stumble onto a good topic I'd like to discuss, which is the content itself, scripting. Let's talk about, how do you come up with your content, like the topics, things that are dictated by your marketplace, of course, right? Because, I had a great discussion with Josh Shacknow in a previous episode, and he was saying that content is important, of course, and the quality is important, but the quality is based on what the conversation is, and if you're trying to reach a certain market, if you're not speaking to that market, it's not going to work. It's not going to get that kind of traction. So what would you say to how you approach creating the actual content?
Yeah, I mean, you're nailing these questions, by the way. So with respect to content creation, sometimes what I'll do is start from a nugget of an idea, and then just try and expand that idea into as many different facets as I can, right? So you want to speak to the analytical, but you also want to speak to the, 10,000 foot high, high view. You want to speak to the personal, but you also want to speak to the person who likes, stories or facts or stats. So you kind of start with a nugget of an idea and then just expand that idea into as many different facets as you can. And it's kind of just like rolling out a blanket. You start with a small packed up blanket, and then you kind of just expand it over into as many places as you can. And that's what kind of helps build the holistic content. And that doesn't come overnight. And usually ideas are built between two or many different people. And so that's why these types of conversations are so important, because they help spark ideas, they help build on ideas, they help you roll out that idea or that kind of framework over a larger kind of canvas, if you want to call it that. And so I don't necessarily, sit down, think of an idea, and then just, write for as long as I can on that specific idea. Usually I'm pulling from so many different sources to start to like pile on the clay as to how to kind of formulate that thought. What I've also found too is that writing is a very, very good way of kind of slowing down that process in your brain and forcing yourself to, explicitly talk about these different points, because your brain can do mental loops, right? And you're very forgiving to yourself when you have a certain idea, but in order to, really flesh out that idea, you have to kind of write it down, and you have to kind of put pen to paper or speak it out over audio or create videos about it. And so I think it's about building that content over time and sticking with nuggets of ideas that maybe have come from you or have come from other people, and then just building on them.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, Mike's bang on with what he's saying there, and it really does come with trial and error. Is a big part of it too. Like just again going back to that, just do it. Your content, it just won't be as strong as the stuff that you video 4, 5, 10, 15, 20, like by those points, you're really going to start to get that momentum. You're also going to get feedback from your marketplace, from your audience, right? And then that feedback will dictate where you keep going with your content too. So there's so many different ways to come up with the content. What I really want to pick Mike's brain on though now is repurposing that content, because he did a video that I worked on, and while I was editing it, there was some just and he knows what I'm talking about here. I've mentioned this to him already, where there's these great nuggets of information that are talked about in this video. But I'd like Mike to just reiterate these. Like, there's some really great ideas with how you can repurpose content. We're talking one video can, in the Gary V, philosophy, you can 20x the output, right, of these one little piece of content like we're doing right here, right now on this podcast. So, Mike, what could you speak to on the repurposing of one little piece of video?
Yeah, I mean, so I think what you're talking about is I was having a conversation with an entrepreneur, and we were talking about, he writes a lot of blog posts, and he was talking about kind of judging his own success over how many likes and how many comments he was getting on them. And what I told him to do is kind of don't focus on the likes and the comments, because those aren't generating any value for you. Really, there's no monetary value that are put towards likes and comments. Judge your success on how much content you've put out. So if it's, my goal is to do 5 articles or blog posts a week, or if it's to do 1 a week and do 52 in a year, judge yourself on the amount of content that you've put out, as opposed to the pseudo quality of that content judged through likes and comments. And, the reason I said that is exactly your point, because you can repurpose all of that content later on. And if we think about the example I just made about kind of spreading out that blanket of content, let's say you write 52 blog posts in a year. now you can repurpose all that content, put it all together into a book, and you can publish a book. Now you become a credible author. You have authority in your field. You have reasons to go up on stage and do TED Talks and presentations and keynotes. You provide, you create this value for yourself just through the amalgamation of all the content that you've put out. And so I think we get too caught up in the likes and the comments and, you know, how much attention I'm getting right away with the piece of content that I put out. But use that just as a jumping off point and say, my goal is to produce content. It's not to get the likes, because the more content I produce, the more ammunition I have in my arsenal going forward. And it's evergreen, right? It lives forever. And so, you know, you produce, you know, content 5, 10, 15 years from now, you still have all this arsenal of content that you can pull from and repurpose. One blog post can turn into one monologue to camera, or it can turn into, you know, a conversation that you have with on an interview with a podcast, or it can turn into a promotional video for your business. So there's so many different things you can do. And once you've kind of put that content out into the multiverse or into the internet, like the internet verse or whatever you want to call it, right? Now it lives there forever. You can always pull on it. You can always tweak it after time. And that's just, it's almost like etching your ideas into stone. It stays there forever. And the better part is you can tweak it after time. So yeah, that's what I would say.
I love that. I absolutely love that, because, you know, now we're talking about different levels or layers of content repurposing and rollout, because you've got these long-term effects now that come into play. So after a year or two of video, there's a lot of things that can come out of that. As Mike mentioned, okay, you can become a published author right off the bat. Wow. Because now we're talking passive income, right? Mm-hmm. Now we're talking TED Talks, you know, speaking engagements, which is more income, but more notoriety, more, so many things we could go off for on a whole other podcast just on that alone. But now we've got another thing too. So now that you've got, you know, let's say a year or two of content, you can start doing things like, you know, let's say the content isn't necessarily super business focused. It's more passion projects. It's more maybe on the artistic side of things. Maybe it's more, you know, you're not pushing sales to a business. You're doing something more out of something that plays to your heart, something that's more of a passion project. Let's just say that. Well, now you can bring into things like Patreon, for example, because you've built a year or two steady of new audience. You know, you got more engagement. Okay, great. I got all this content. Now I can start to monetize it in a different way because I've built that audience, and that audience becomes so many things you can do. You can Patreon. Of course, there's the affiliate marketing strategies, selling your own merchandise, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. You've just built, like, it's like content becomes this, it's like a behemoth of, you know, like it's like a chunk of business you have now.
100%. And that's, you know, that's building your own personal brand. But what I would say to go even farther is we're just in the beginning stages of being able to be compensated for our work in terms of technology, right? So as technology progresses, it'll enable micropayments and, you know, true personal ownership of your content and your data online. So, you know, when we talk about content creation right now, it's so much in its infancy where we're not getting paid for all the content that we're producing. Sooner or later down the line, and I would say sooner rather than later, 5 years probably max, we're going to be paid for the views that get seen on our videos. We're going to get paid for all the likes. We're going to get paid for all the comments. We're going to get paid for all the engagement, because that's our content. That's what we've done. You know, that value has been stolen from us from large tech companies because they've just been accumulating all that value over time. As technology progresses, more of that value will be in the hands of the consumer, and we'll actually be able to, you know, make real income off of the content that we produce. So I would say, you know, if this is the trend, it's only going to increase, and it's only going to continue to get more and more lucrative for the content producer.
Yeah, it's an exciting future too. I definitely look forward to that. So again, it's like get on it now. Yeah. You know, even if you're like my mom, retired, but she's doing her passion projects online now, making video. Yeah. I'm going to have her as a guest actually, because she's a fantastic example of a whole other demographic that's making more and more video now, especially during this time. We're in June 2020. This is during the worldwide pandemic, and she's got all of her 70 and up, like 70, 80, some 90-year-olds onto Zoom doing, they're telling stories on Zoom, and they're actually doing podcasts, and like,
Love it.
it's absolutely incredible what's going on.
Love it.
So yeah, it's all changing completely right now. And, you're bringing up a great point, which is, yeah, it's fun to do, and there's all these different ways to maybe make money on the long term. But the short term is becoming more feasible to, of course, make a living. Let's talk about, in this right here, right now, have there been, if any, let's say actual sales leads or actual, conversions of your videos that you put out there, bringing clients into BarterPay, for example? Like, and if so, yeah, what does that look like?
Yeah, for sure. I would say, people don't know who you are unless they can see who you are and see what you stand for, right? And so in order to open the door to a conversation, people have to see content, and they have to be given things for like freely from you without anything asked for in return. So video is a perfect mechanism to do that. You're putting your thoughts out into the internet, the ecosphere, whatever you want to call it, into the ethos. And people are freely seeing that. You're not asking for anything in return, but what you are doing is giving your ideas, giving your information, and at least giving them a little bit of a probe into what you do. And, if they're interested in learning more, they'll reach out. But if you had no content, or if you had nothing online to show them who you are, what you stand for, how are they going to even know to reach out to you? 8 billion people on Earth, and you have to stand out somehow. And the only way to do that, and especially the best way to do that in today's age, is video content. Video is the alpha. So much more input output from video than there is from text, than there is from audio only. And so the best way to get your thoughts and your opinions and even your business out there is to create videos that reflect what you stand for.
Yeah, they act as a portfolio almost, or
For sure.
yeah, like a vetting system in a way. I got a text this morning from my friend Josh, the immigration lawyer we were speaking about earlier, and he's just like, we filmed the podcast yesterday, so he had a circle, he had an email this morning, literally coming in saying, "Oh, I saw your video on your YouTube channel about your immigration policies. Would love to talk more about your services, et cetera, et cetera." Boom, customer done.
It's that easy, honestly. You can spend thousands of dollars with LinkedIn lead generation services and outreach, but it can be as easy as putting out a free video, people seeing that free video and responding to you. And it's a hell of a lot warmer of a lead when they connect with you, wanting to learn more about you, than you reaching out to them. So you're giving people the impetus to then create a warm lead for you, free of charge.
Yeah, I mean, this gets me into, maybe it's slightly more philosophical, but I was speaking to again Josh about this idea where he was saying that people that see high quality advertisements, so something that I would film, or my production company with a cinema grade 4K, beautiful camera would put together, high quality, looking awesome, Hollywood-esque. They see that on social media, scroll through, because I know it's an ad. It's high quality. I see somebody on a cell phone, boom, talking. I'm going to actually watch that ad now because it looks like a genuine human communicating something with no bells and whistles, no smoke and mirrors. Mm-hmm. What is that? And that's I forget what magazine, but that's a legitimate article and a study that's showing that people are engaging less with these. And I feel like I might be putting myself out of business, but I don't even care at this point.
It's adaptation.
It's adaptation, and I don't care. I get to do my own passion projects, looking gorgeous. That's fine. It's fine by me. But and there is a time and place, and I'll definitely make a caveat. There's absolutely a time and place when you want that look, that high quality look. But 90%, 95% of your content probably doesn't need to be. So what is that saying about the marketplace, about consumers, about people that are taking in this content when they actually respond more to a lower grade cell phone video? What does that mean?
What I think it means is that consumers are getting smarter, right? We're so inundated on a daily basis with advertisements and promotions, and they're always, ads are continuing to get better and smarter and, more targeted and more niche, but the consumer at the same time is getting smarter because we see all these so-called improvements in ad quality and where the ad's placed. And I think what we're longing for as a civilization is just truth. There's not enough just flat like facts out there. Everything on the internet you see these days is it can be spun. It's fake news. It's this, that, and the other. But what we just want is some, and that's why I think podcasts have taken off so much, is because they're just conversations with people, and it's true. You get down to the core of who people are, and I think that's what we've been longing for, and that's why, advertisements on Joe Rogan makes $1 million a podcast, because people listen to what he has to say, right? And people want to hear that. And so what if there's 5 minutes of ads at the beginning? He lets people know that they're ads. He's not trying to trick people. And so, I think what that all bubbles up to is just people being fed up with being lied to and trying to be tricked, the bait and switch. And what we need is more conversations like this, more people showing their true humanity, and more just like open, honest conversations, because I think that's what will get at the heart of consumers. That's what will get at the heart of why we should support some businesses and not other businesses. And I think that's truly going to lead to, a more stable, more sustainable market in the future, where people are actually choosing a business based on the values that they stand for behind the smoke and mirrors. And so, I appreciate you bringing up that point, because it's totally been a shift. And I would say in the last 10 years or so, we've really started to get a lot smarter to the whole advertising world. And, I would say that's only going to continue to progress.
Yeah, I absolutely love that, because it's also showing that, even in the corporate world, it's about a genuine, authentic connection, and also having a human face behind it. You can't just have the big brand anymore. There's so much more value with, like, well, who's the human behind that? Where's the human part of this? Business is, it doesn't exist without humans. AI is not there yet. So it's still a human-based medium, a phenomenon. It doesn't exist anywhere else in nature, really. So without people, it's nothing. And I think we're finally coming to that realization as sort of a collective consciousness. And I do love seeing this. Yeah, it's like an evolution that's been happening over the last 10 years where, we're becoming smarter with advertisements, but we're changing the landscape, because it's forcing better things to happen, meaning, podcasts like this, podcasts like Joe Rogan, podcasts like anything else in between, where all it is are two human beings sitting down and talking, unedited, unfiltered, for the most part, at least. And it's authentic. It's authentic. Go figure, right?
Yeah. Honestly, that's what we've been longing for. You're hitting the nail on the head. And that's kind of just, as I keep talking about technology progression and how that's going to help, but I truly, I'm fully an optimist when it comes to the next 15 years, I would say, and how far the pendulum's going to swing back to the favor of the population. We've already seen CEO wages go up 300, 400x, and we've seen the wage of the average worker stagnate, right? And so what we've seen is people in charge of organizations that are, filtering the dollars to the top. But as technology progresses, there will be more fundamental purchasing power for the average person. We're going to be more empowered with our own data, with our own money, with, how we transact peer to peer. And so I think that's what leads to a lot of my optimism about the future, and why I think we're definitely in a renaissance period where we're going to be switching from this kind of old classical big brands, buy what you see on TV, to true human connection, where you purchase what you fundamentally believe in and who's doing right for the world, right?
I absolutely love it. And it's so true, getting back to even just technology that we discussed in the beginning of the episode, where, for under $500, and I would argue you could start for free, of course, if you really want, you can start creating your own content, which means, even 10 years ago, that wasn't really doable. Even 20 years ago, impossible, because we both know, like, digital film didn't even, that didn't exist. Filmmaking was absurdly expensive. Cameras were massive, et cetera, et cetera. Everything was just like, it took money. So you needed money. Film used to be a very elitist art form because
Absolutely.
it costs you a couple thousand just to make a piece of crap home video, right?
Yeah.
So, now that you can do this, it gets every single, 7+ billion people the capability to bring their voice. And whether it's for a business, but it's a business that it's theirs, and if you resonate with it, great, now you're a customer. Or if it's just an important message, now we have that capability, and that in itself is absolutely, it's a great point. It's a real renaissance that's happening.
Yeah, 100%. I think what we're kind of moving towards is an era where we purchase based on the intent of the business. And as I said, to reiterate, right, we're moving away from just buying what we see on TV. And I think for the longest time, that's been the only medium of advertising. That's been all we've been inundated with, is if we see it on TV, it must be true. And then it became, if we see it on the internet, it must be true. And now we're starting to question all of that, right? And hopefully that we will bring technologies that will say, okay, verifiably, this is true. And so that will start to democratize power. It will start to democratize voice. It will start to create an ecosystem where the best ideas bubble to the top. Because when everybody has a voice to say what they want, people will choose to listen to the voice that makes the most sense. And that's just, it's just logical progression. But technology is finally catching up to that point that allows for us to have that progression.
Yeah, I love that. It's making me excited about the future, and I'm the same. I'm a relentless optimist, because ultimately, every single person, we're a part of that, and we have all the capabilities to create that better future for ourselves, rather than worrying about all the other crap going on. It's like, well, let's look in the mirror and what can we do? And again, if it comes down to something like a podcast, which costs absolutely nothing, but you can start talking to your friends, putting it out there, and even I always say, if you make an impact on one person, one human being, that's it, then you've done something pretty important. And I think we can all agree that there's probably one person that's going to watch your content, right? So,
Yeah.
just with that in mind, then we can talk about the butterfly effect and the ripple effect that has. So everyone has a platform, everyone has the technology and the capability. I mean, literally, including up to my grandmother, who's in her early 90s. I literally just did a Zoom call with her, and she's getting into this stuff too on her iPad. So everyone's able to do this, and of course the younger kids are going to be the experts in the field anyway. And it's an exciting time. So with that in mind, Mike, I will just start to wrap it up here. But I would love to hear some final thoughts on you from you. Although we've really covered a lot of fantastic things, I've really enjoyed this conversation. Let's maybe. Let's maybe just discuss to the audience in a general sense, like, what could be someone's next step. Let's pretend that some of the people watching right now haven't made that first step into making their own video. And I know we said just do it, but maybe with going into a bit more detail, like what's a good motivation for people to be like, okay, you know what, enough's enough, I'm going to start making some video content. What would you say to those people?
The first thing I would say is find your passion. And continuing on with this technology conversation, what the internet has really provided us is a way to monetize our own values and monetize our own passions. So regardless of, if you are a downhill skiing enthusiast, or if you like to knit, pillows of cats, who knows? There's probably an audience for it, and your audience doesn't necessarily have to be in your geographic region anymore. You can start to promote to the entire world. And, like it or not, there's probably some more people that are kind of similar to you around the world. That might not have been economical back in the day, because you only could could market to your city or to your region. But now you have a world population that's willing to listen. And so that's why these chat groups and these Reddit threads have all, started to bubble up, is because there's commonality between us around, regardless of religion, regardless of country, regardless of origin. You just need to find that commonality. So find your passion, jot down a few ideas of what you might want to talk about, what interests you. And going back to the passion piece, you're only really going to be successful if you find what you're passionate about, because anything else will, the first stumbling block or setback, you're going to quit because you don't like it. So find that true passion, find what really makes you tick, and build some ideas around it. Expand that canvas a little bit. Talk to other people that are interested in the same thing. See if there's somebody that you can get on a Zoom call just like this. You don't have to call it a podcast. You can call it just a quick Zoom call, and have a virtual coffee with somebody, record it, and then put it out there. See if it sticks. If it doesn't stick, who cares? Make another one. And so just get off zero, start producing some content. The last thing I would say too is, in businesses that are very personal, where you traditionally would be going to somebody's office or going to a coffee shop and having a coffee, you can now do all of this on Zoom, and you can record all of the conversations that you're having. So we're making available myriads of new content that never would have been recorded or never would have been available for reproduction or repurposing afterwards. So take advantage of the mediums that you have, record some conversations, put them out there. Who gives a shit if people like them or not? Continue to do them and continue to hit the tree of the market and see what falls out. That's all I would say. Find your passion and make your content.
Really appreciate that, Mike. And, he's absolutely bang on. For those of you watching, I've heard from the absolute great entrepreneurs and the great teachers, currently in a Tony Robbins course, and that became way more affordable since this pandemic. And now it's on Zoom, like Mike was just saying, and I can watch it and rewatch it, download it. It's, I would argue, it's different. You can't compare to in person, but the value is pretty high for me because I can literally rewatch. And again, it goes back to finding your passion. Finding your passion, it all starts with that. Why talk about something you don't really care about just because you feel like you have to? Now you've created a job. Now you've created almost like a psychological prison for yourself. Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
We've already got enough things in this life that could be on that side of things. So let's try to, make this a fun process. If you're enjoying it, it's going to work out a lot better for you, and you ultimately will always be more successful doing things you enjoy. So I think that's a fantastic place to leave this at. Thanks so much, Mike, for coming on to the show. Really appreciate having you. And maybe let's give, if you wanted to let the audience know where they can connect with you online, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure thing. First of all, Chris, thanks so much for having me. I had a great time. Love having these kind of deep conversations. With regards to where to find me, LinkedIn, Mike Grantis. You can find me on Instagram or Facebook, as though I'm not as active on those sites, but LinkedIn is definitely the primary source. So give me a connect, reach out to me, and I'll likely see it and reach out back. God bless all of you.
Yeah. And lastly, too, BarterPay's information so people can check out BarterPay for everyone wondering right now. Fantastic platform that I'm also a part of, and great way. I'll let Mike explain it a little bit better, but it is a really great way to take idle time in your business and still create wonderful content and using other people's services or having them use yours during a time of downtime in your business, using through the barter method, essentially. But Mike, just maybe a quick explanation on where people can find out more information.
Sure. So BarterPay is Canada's largest organized barter system. And so what we're known for is helping business owners acquire the goods and services that they need using their own goods and services instead of cash. And especially now going through a global pandemic, everybody's trying to stretch a dollar. Everybody's trying to figure out how they can stretch their finances a little bit farther. BarterPay is a great mechanism to do that. Flat rate fees, super affordable. So reach out to us at barterpay.ca. find a webinar with our CEO and founder, John Porter. He does free webinars once a week, and you'll learn a lot. So that's something you don't want to miss.
Interesting. Webinars, video. Yeah, there's another example, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Well, that's great. So, Mike, I'll get you to stay on after I stop recording here. I really just to do a little quick, brief chat. But for those of you watching, thanks again for tuning in. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Once again, all the information we did talk about will be in the description below. So don't worry, you don't have to memorize everything we just said at the end, especially to get in contact with Mike. All of his information and links will be available below. So just check out the description. And of course, reach out to me if you want to ask any questions. All my information also in the description below. And as always, thank you for watching, and we will catch you next time.